Please, sir, just $10. The voice was a trembling whisper, almost swallowed by the noise of Manhattan. Lucas Reed, a 30-year-old CEO who looked as if he were born in a tailored suit, lowered his designer sunglasses. At his feet, a boy of maybe 4, his coat too thin for the cold, stared up at him with heartbreaking seriousness. In one hand, he held a dirty rag, in the other, emptiness. "I'll shine your shoes," the boy said, his voice trying to sound stronger than it was. "I don't need more. It's just to buy bread for my mom." Lucas remained silent, a statue of calculated coldness. He felt no pity. He hadn't felt anything in a long time. His flawless Italian shoes reflected the boy's desperate eyes. "Where is your mother?" he asked, his voice flat, a business instrument. The boy pointed across the street. "She's over there. She hasn't eaten in 2 days." Lucas looked. Leaning against a concrete wall, a figure was slumped, motionless. Young, tangled blonde hair, a missing shoe. A scene of silent defeat. And in that image, Lucas saw a ghost, not the woman's, but his own. That was him. Surrounded by luxury, but collapsed on the inside. Without a word, Lucas stood and crossed the street. The boy, Eli, ran ahead. "Mom," he whispered as he reached her. "I found someone." The woman didn't move. Lucas approached, and his chest went cold. Her knees were scraped, her lips bluish. He wondered if she was still breathing. He took off his $1,000 wool coat and covered her. Her body was pure ice. A faint groan escaped her lips. "Who?" she whispered, her voice a thread. "It's okay," Lucas said, his voice surprisingly soft. "You need help. I've called a car." "No!" She tried to sit up, but collapsed into his arms. She was as light as a feather. "You're going to a clinic," he said, with a firmness that allowed no argument. "Don't argue." In the taxi on the way to the clinic, the boy looked at Lucas with huge, curious eyes. "Are you an angel?" he asked. Lucas gave a faint smile, the first in a long time. "No, kid, far from it." At the clinic, as the woman, Alice, was being taken inside, the boy asked, "Are they going to fix her?" Lucas knelt, meeting his gaze. "They'll do everything they can, and so will I." When Alice awoke, panic seized her. "Eli!" she cried, trying to sit up. "He's safe just outside," said the calm voice of Lucas, who was sitting in a chair in the corner of the room. "Who are you?" she asked suspiciously. "The police?" "No, I'm just someone who saw your son trying to shine shoes for $10. The words hit her like a punch. "Why did you help us?" Lucas stared at her, and for the first time, a crack of his pain showed through. "Because I could, and because I know what it's like to lose the most important person in your life." Lucas offered his guest apartment to Alice and Eli, a modern, luxurious place he never used. That night, in his own penthouse 3 floors above, he couldn't sleep. The memories he had buried under meetings and reports surfaced. Her name was Claire, a writer, a dreamer. He had loved her more than the empire he was building. The day he became one of the country's youngest CEOs, she was on her way to surprise him. She was carrying a gift, a pen engraved with the words, "You are enough." She never made it. A drunk driver ran a red light. Lucas arrived at the hospital too late. The guilt consumed him. He shut himself down, convinced he was a curse, destined to destroy anything pure he touched. In the following days, a strange routine formed. Lucas found himself making excuses to visit the guest apartment. He'd bring books for Eli, or just sit in silent, listening to the sound of a normal life. Alice, still wary, began to relax. His drawings appeared on the fridge. The smell of homemade soup filled the air. They were small gestures, but for Lucas, they were like the first rain after a long drought. One evening, he found her on the living room floor putting on a sock puppet show for Eli. Alice's laughter, pure and unfiltered, echoed through the apartment. Lucas stood in the doorway, unseen, and smiled. A real smile. Something in his frozen chest began to thaw. But the peace was an illusion. The storm arrived in the form of a woman named Rachel. Lucas's childhood friend, and more importantly, his fiancée in an arranged marriage to merge two family empires. Rachel was beautiful, polished, and as cruel as a razor blade. She strode into Lucas's office unannounced. "I've heard the rumors, darling, so it's true. You're housing a homeless woman and her kid? What's the plan, Lucas? Is this your new charity project to ease the guilt you carry over Claire's death?" "Stop it, Rachel," Lucas said, his voice ice-cold. But it was too late. Outside the door, Alice had heard every word. She had come to bring him some warm soup, a small gesture of gratitude. Rachel's words, charity project, guilt, homeless woman, destroyed her. She left the food on the reception desk and walked out without a sound, her heart in pieces. When Lucas returned to the apartment that night, he found it empty, cold, silent. On the kitchen counter, a note and a $50 bill he had left for her. The note read, "Thank you for saving me, but I don't belong in your world." Panic, an emotion Lucas hadn't felt in years, seized him. He ran into the street as the rain began to fall, shouting her name. He searched every corner, every subway station, desperation growing in his chest. Finally, he saw them, two small silhouettes, huddled under the arch of a bridge, trying to shelter from the storm.